We had a former Labor Prime Minister in this country, Bob Hawke. He's a very intelligent man. He's a Rhodes Scholar. He made the comment that when the bell tolls for Israel, it tolls for all mankind. He got just how cancerous that poison is. I think a lot of what we're seeing in Australia now clearly reveals that the protests about what the IDF was doing, what the Netanyahu government was doing, which is all open for debate,
sure,
is really just cover for anti-Semitism.
Of course.
Because you don't hear them condemning Hamas. And now when the peace deal's about, the protesters have just turned their attention to say, let's get rid of Israel, the only Jewish state in the world, just 10 million people. And they're not all Jews either, by the way.
No, there are 2 million Muslim Arabs who sit on the Supreme Court and are in every public part of life. And
they seem to enjoy democracy.
Not only enjoy democracy, they're not going anywhere and they don't want to go anywhere. I mean, if you were to really ask the question, who are the freest Muslim Arabs in the entire Middle East? The answer is the Israeli Arabs, period. There's no question about that. Who is freer? The Arab who lives in Israel, the Muslim Arab who lives in Israel, or the Muslim Arab who lives in Egypt, or who lives in Jordan under the Hashemite kingdom? You want to talk about an apartheid nation, it's Jordan, but nobody wants to talk about that. That's also the real Palestinian nation, but that's a sidebar. Yeah, all of these things, the very same people who for 2 years have been screaming about a genocide, then the quote unquote genocide ends and they don't stop. They're the same people who'd never asked Egypt to open the door. Egypt has a border with Gaza, just like Israel does. They could have opened the door. Nobody lived. I've been to Sinai. It's basically empty.
Why didn't they?
Because they don't care about the Palestinians, because this is all about the Jews. Because the Palestinian issue is the cudgel that the anti-American or anti-Western forces of the world use to destroy the West. Israel represents the West in a very difficult part of the world. It's the size of New Jersey. So let's say Israel was the most genocidal, evil, unimaginably Hitlerian evil that was completely unfathomable. Let's say that was actually true. And by the way, there's obviously no evidence for that. And if they wanted to kill everybody in Gaza, they could have done it in 48 hours and all those things. But let's say that was actually true. Why? There are 48 Arab nations. No, sorry, there are 48 Muslim nations. Nobody took one person in. There are 22 Muslim nations. Wait, did I get that backwards? There are 48 Muslim nations, correct?
Broadly speaking.
Yeah, I think it's 48 Muslim nations and 22. That's correct. It's 48 Muslim nations and 22 Arab nations. These are purportedly their brothers. Most of them came from those places. Most Gazans are Egyptian because, of course, as you know, before 1967, Gaza was part of Egypt. Nobody cares. They only use it as the cudgel over the West. So Israel is fighting the most just war you could possibly fight. And for all of the people that don't like how many civilians are killed or anything else, no army in the history of the world has been told to feed their enemies. No army in the history of the world has been told to drop leaflets and tell people when you're bombing or anything else. Not only would nobody ever be told, nobody would be expected, nobody would ever be asked. So that's why the PR war for Israel is almost an impossibility. They're asked things that nobody would be asked. Even when October 7th happened, everybody in the mainstream media was like, well, they've got 2 days to figure this out because then the world will turn against them. What a psychotic thing to say. Imagine if 1,000 people in San Diego were killed by Mexican terrorists, then they took another 400 of them into tunnels somewhere in Tijuana. We would have obliterated the entire country of Mexico, which is endlessly bigger than what Gaza is. We would have killed way more people. It would have been cheered on by the world. And you could probably make a moral, ethical argument for it if they were still holding hostages. So it is your right as a sovereign nation to defend your citizens. The Palestinians have decided that killing Jews is more important than building any sort of civil society. They are the pawn of the world. But I would say, because you asked about Trump as it relates to all of this, Trump has flipped the script now and basically said, unlike the previous administration, we're not going to throw him under the bus. He now has the hostages out. People have seen in the 2 weeks of this that Hamas is now killing Palestinians. I think they killed 100 Palestinians that they claim are collaborators yesterday. Nobody cares about that. So a lot of the hypocrisy is being exposed. I don't think that magically suddenly people are going to flip their political opinions because of hypocrisy, but it is the fight for the West. The same way I said to you, if they suddenly got rid of the 200,000 Jews in Australia, whether this country would be better or worse, and the answer obviously is worse. If they actually did the river to the sea over there and they got rid of those 8 million Jews that are there, 8 or 9 million, the world would be immeasurably worse overnight. So you don't have to care about the Jews or Israel, but at the end of the day, what happens over there probably has some effect on your life.
The reality is the world is almost certainly a safer place because Iran has been massively exposed and reduced in influence.
And by the way, we had plenty of pundits on the American right who were saying this is going to lead to thermonuclear World War III and all the rest of it. Israel took a country's airspace that's almost 20 times larger than it in 10 days, asked America to drop about 4 bombs, not one boot, which I wouldn't have wanted. I would have never called for an American boot on the ground or anything else. We helped them knock out some nuclear reactors, and that's it. And it wrapped up. And I think that's why there is hope for peace in some sense, not kumbaya peace, but there's hope for a cessation of long-term violence, because they've all realized, boy, you throw rockets at these Jews and they might just, take over your country in 12 days. So maybe enough of this.